So these guys are always paranoid, aren't they? You talked about micromanagement. There's another example you give of Yasser Arafat, who would sign, what, $300 worth of checks as small as those to his paramilitary unit. So there is a lot of, I mean, they don't sleep at night, do they? I mean, they don't get a good night's sleep is what I would imagine. And that serves them well, if that is the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of the psychological qualities that these leaders have would be detrimental to normal people. So, I mean, if you work in an office cubicle, having the psychological makeup of a dictator would be terrible because you would not be able to function. But of course, these people do not have normal jobs. So just to give one example, these are people that have to either threaten or actively use brutal violence pretty regularly. And to be able to do that and to still get some sort of sleep, you have to be damaged in a sense. And the same goes for that paranoia. I mean, they have to be paranoid, because if you aren't paranoid, then you are going to lose power because, unlike for the cubicle worker, for the dictator, the threat is actually real and it is actually lurking around every corner. And yet what I argue in the book is that these people are rational within the system in which they operate. So when you look at somebody like Putin, right? I mean, using missiles to attack a Ukrainian children's hospital, you see that and you think this man has totally lost it. I mean, he has to be completely insane. But within the system in which he operates, the violence, the repression, the treachery, all of it makes sense because the killing and the torture is a way to maintain power. And the problem is, seen from the dictatorial palace, that if you lose that rationality, if you do become divorced from reality, you are no longer able to make the trade-offs that you need to make in order to maintain power. So in the book, an example that I gave is Macías Nguema, who was a dictator in West Africa during the Cold War. And this guy completely lost his mind. And I'm not saying that figuratively, but I mean, he became completely delusional. He could no longer differentiate between, fact and fiction. And there are anecdotes that he would walk around his palace screaming out the names of the people that he had killed. And in one episode, he would ask his servants to lay the table for 8 guests. But nobody arrived. And yet, he spent the evening talking to his 8 guests as if they were there, but he was all alone. So what happens in a situation like this? Once you are no longer able to make these trade-offs, and once you are no longer able to actually differentiate between friends and foes, he just lashed out and he started killing at random. And then very quickly, the people around him that kept him in power decided, you know what, if there's no difference being made between people that are loyal and people that are not loyal, we need to get rid of him as quickly as we possibly can. And that's what he did. And they shot him.